Hello, welcome to this Centercode training video regarding the Connect Manager fundamentals. We're actually going to dig into some of the essential concepts behind being a Connect Manager, whether you're a community manager or a project manager. So in this video, we're going to talk about what is scope. We're also going to talk about how to control access to resources within your implementation. We're going to talk about constructing the user experience using something called notices. We're going to talk about accessing your data via views and filters. We're going to talk about how to format text using the WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get text editor. And we're also going to talk about creating feedback forms and using the form engine. To start off our discussion, we're going to talk about scope. And scope effectively differentiates the community from the project. So if you're both the community manager and the project manager, you need to be sure to draw a very hard line between the community and the project. The community exists for pre-profiling your candidates. You want to get as clear of a picture of your users as you can before bringing them into your projects. Projects, on the other hand, are where the action happens. You want to do some final qualifying to make sure you have the right individuals coming into your projects, but other than that, you should be good to go and ready to throw out some resources and get some feedback. Now, utilizing scope to its fullest ensures high-quality feedback because the focus behind each scope ensures that ideal testing environments for your product are considered, as well as grabbing the ideal profile testers. Now, speaking about access control, teams are how you'll group your testers and your internal members into designated groups. They're basically custom named buckets. Roles, then, being the access rights to information or functionality, are granted to those teams. Now, if a user is on multiple teams, they get the sum of those roles, but effectively, you have dynamic roles and you have static roles. Static roles being those that are always present within your project or in your community, such as access a project or something of that nature. Dynamic roles, on the other hand, are things that correspond to individual items in your project. So a created survey, for instance, you have a dynamic role to access that survey, which normally wouldn't exist if the survey doesn't exist. Beyond that, you have an access safety net, or team types. And now teams belong to certain team types, and the team types dictate the minimum or maximum access rights that a team can have. For example, a Phase 1 or a press team of the participant type can never have create project. However, on the other side, a project manager can never not have create project. So based on team types, it allows you to make sure that your testers and your users aren't getting more or less access than they really need. Next, we'll talk about controlling the user experience via what we call notices. And notices are those interstitial content pages before landing on home pages. Notices correspond to required action or forced inaction on the part of the tester. For example, we have multiple different kinds of notices that stem from pre-existing content. So say you have created a survey, or you have an NDA. You can set that NDA to being an agreement notice, or that survey to be a click-through, basically meaning that in order to move past the agreement notice, they have to provide a username and password, effectively signing off on that agreement. For a survey, they have to fill out that survey before clicking submit and moving past it. One of our more useful notices as well, corresponding to the applicant process, is a block notice. And a block notice basically provides some information and then impedes further access. So for instance, a typical application process might go an agreement notice requiring the NDA, followed by a survey notice for that initial application survey, that initial qualification, followed by a block notice saying thank you for your application and that their application will be considered, and then their access stops there. They never actually make it into the project fully. And this actually provides two very key things. One, it allows you to set up this recruitment process before actually going live with your project and begin qualifying your testers before actually launching the project. And two, it provides scalability. It allows you to start accepting applicants before you actually start running your project. And speaking towards scalability, notices set in a line, or one after the other, are considered a notice chain. Within that notice chain, you can include macros. And a notice macro effectively works just like those interstitial pages, except for it's hidden. The user doesn't actually know that they're going through it. So for instance, in that previous example of the applicant, they'll sign off on an agreement, they'll fill out their survey, and based on a question within that survey, a macro will move them from one team to another. So it'll take them off the applicant team and put them on a participant team, thereby bypassing that block notice and giving them full access to the project. Now, if you're ready to launch your project straight away, that's a great way to really simplify the process. Instead of having to go through and select your testers individually and then promote them, you can have it all be automatic, thereby instantly promoting potentially thousands of pre-qualified testers. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. Next, we're going to talk about accessing data via views and filters. Now, views and filters are things that are going to be seen in any place that data is accessed throughout Connect. So, user management, feedback management, and reporting are just three. But effectively, a filter allows you to pull up particular items or particular users based on qualifying data. Views, on the other hand, correspond to the information you see regarding those users. So you could pull up whatever users answered a certain question on a survey, or signed up for your community within the last week, and then you can see their contact information via the view. Now, in order to create a view and a filter, we're actually going to breeze through this process real quickly in user management. Now, to start this out, we're within the Viridian Dynamics community, corresponding to the community story we spoke of before. To access user management, you might recall from your quick tour corresponding to your community or project, but if not, just simply access the community tools or project tools on the top left, and then users in the left-hand menu. Now, from here you have the option to choose from a previously saved filter using the drop-down menu, or to create a new filter. Same thing with a view. In this case, let's go ahead and create new views and new filters. Simply choose the data set you want. So in this case, let's say users who signed in within the last 42 days or 6 weeks. So let's choose key dates. Last community login was less than 42 days ago. Go ahead and add that to the filter. Scrolling down, you have the opportunity to save the filter if you want to save it and name it for use later. In this case, not a concern of mine. I'm going to go ahead and create the filter. In order to go ahead and add a new view, let's go ahead and click New there. And we can choose the kind of data we want to see regarding the results of our filter. In this case, let's find some general demographic data, perhaps their email, their age, a couple of items such as that. So in this case, their email will be found under User Account. And just double-click to add it to the list. User profiles will include their About Me, which will give us some date of birth information. Alternately, let's take a look at their community team. And finally, let's look into their participation and choose the total number of community logins they've had for the entire length of time they've been an active member. That looks good to me. Go ahead and scroll down. Again, you have the opportunity to save the view for later use. Your advanced options give you the opportunity to group or sort the results based on a particular item in your view, and you can also set the maximum number of users per page. If you plan on pulling up a large list of users and taking action against them, we recommend using the 1,000. That way you can get at least 1,000 or the vast majority of users corresponding to your filter. Now in this case, I don't necessarily need to save the view, so I'm just going to go ahead and create the view. I could also create and execute, considering the action I want to take is simply to show the user list. From here you can actually use a couple of other actions, including adding users to team or emailing them. I just want to utilize the tool to show the list. So there you can see the user list of the users satisfying the last logins within the last 6 weeks and all of their information. From this list, you can actually take a look at the user actions. You can email these users, you can remove them from community, add them to a team, create a filter from these particular users, and then filter them further from there, or print the user information. Next, we're going to talk about formatting text within Connect. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this in a couple of different situations, but most of them are going to be using the WYSIWYG text editor, or the what you see is what you get text editor. Effectively, the way the WYSIWYG editor works is it accepts all kinds of formatting through the tool itself, so using those bold icons or increased text or changing the font, embedding images, etc., and it converts all of that into HTML. So then you can actually review the HTML using the HTML button, but effectively what you want to do is format text within the text editor itself. The reason for this is that importing text from tools like Microsoft Word or something of that nature brings with it all kinds of different back-end formatting that can actually mess up the text that you're putting into this text editor on the back end. Additionally, it even has the possibility of messing up your reporting by throwing errors and mixing in weird HTML. So it's always better to format your text within the editor, so paste in whatever text you have from the outside source without any formatting, and then edit it from within the editor. Another consideration with formatting text are dynamic tags. And dynamic tags generate content based on the recipient or the viewer dynamically. For instance, if you want to include a first name in an email, it'll actually generate that first name based on the recipient of the email. Alternately, within a content piece or something of that nature, you can actually include a user's distributed values or even survey responses as reference. Another note to make about these dynamic tags within the text editor is you want to add these tags after the text. So throw in all your text, format it however you want, and then insert these tags after the fact. Again, the reason behind this is because of the way the WYSIWYG inserts these tags via HTML. It makes it much more simple, and you'll have much less of a headache if you do it after the fact. Finally, we're going to talk about creating feedback forms, and that would take place in either feedback or surveys, test platforms, etc. Anywhere that you're looking to gather information from a tester, you're going to be using a form engine. And our form engine allows you to create completely custom queries to gather whatever kind of data you want. There are elements from single choice to multiple choice, rating scales, even date and time elements, or file attachments. Now, using all of these elements together appropriately, gathering the right kind of data in a succinct manner, is what differentiates the good managers from the great managers. Remember that practice makes perfect, and collecting the best data starts with asking the right questions. Feel free to toy around with it and get familiar with the form engine, because the more familiar you are with it, the more efficient you'll be at creating these forms. As such, we're actually going to dig into creating a survey a little bit and demo making a couple of these elements using the form engine. For the form engine example, we're actually going to dig through the project perspective. So in this case, we're actually at the community homepage of a project manager. We're going to click on the Nighthawk project to access it, jump into Project Tools, and then access your Surveys tool. Now again, you can use the form engine within feedback or at the community level within surveys or user profiles, anything like that, but in this case, we're just going to dig through it as a project manager. So again, we're not going to step through actually creating a survey, we're just going to modify and add elements to ones we've already got. In this inactive final survey, we're going to click on the list icon to list out all the elements within that survey, and we're going to create a new form element. So then you'll see this page within many of the other form element items, and you can actually choose your element type from the drop-down menu, text entry, single choice, multiple choice, all the different options here, and certain items are going to have other options available to them. For instance, the feedback form engine will have releases, for instance, if there's a valid release within your implementation. In this case, we're going to go ahead and create a single choice, a multiple choice, and add a file attachment item. So in this case, go single choice, provide it a name, you can include a quick description, perhaps of what kind of information you're looking for this one. But in this case, let's go ahead and say item 1 through 4. So then scroll down, and you have the advanced options. The advanced options pertaining to each of these items is dynamic based on the type of item you're using. So in this case, single choice, there are a couple of options here, including the display as, which would not be present for instance, a multiple choice or text element. In this case, you can choose conditional, basing it off of a previous question. Gives you the drop-down menu to choose a different question to base it off of, or you can make it required. You can also save this as a preset question if you plan on asking questions very similar to this, maybe with a little bit different wording with the same general structure. You can save it as a preset and call on it later, and simply modify a few things here or there to make it more of a unique question. So go ahead and hit submit, and we're taken to a page to add another one. In this case, let's go ahead and choose our multiple choice item. Again, you have the description option. Scrolling past that, let's add our items. And scroll down. You've got those advanced options. Again, notice how there is not a display as option here because multiple choice doesn't have that opportunity. You have those conditional and required fields. You can again save it. In this case, go ahead and submit. And finally, let's include a file attachment. There we go. It's going to produce a field for your submitter to attach a file to this particular survey. Your advanced options include allowing multiple files, which is again dynamic to this particular type of element, and your conditional required just like normally before. Go ahead and submit. And now that we're done, let's go ahead and return to the form and take a look at what we have. So it shows here those items that we just recently added: single choice question, multiple choice, and attach a file. Now, one of the critical benefits to using our form engine is being able to preview a survey. So for instance, if this is going to your general tester team, let's go ahead and preview that survey as our tester. So choose the tester's team, and you can see the full survey as it was previously built out. And again, this is an existing survey, so some of these items were already here. Go ahead and scroll down to our new questions. You've got your single choice items 1 through 4. You have your multiple choice, item A through D, and you can choose more than one of those. And you can actually attach a file here. So when you're generating your surveys or your feedback forms, you'll utilize functionality just like this, asking exactly the kind of questions you want and collecting exactly the data you want. That said, in this video we covered scope, being the difference between community and project. We talked about controlling access to resources via teams, roles, and team types. We also constructed the user experience with notices and notice macros. We talked about accessing your data using views and filters. We included formatting text using the WYSIWYG text editor, and we created some survey elements using the form engine. So to reiterate, these are all elements that are going to be prevalent throughout your implementation of Connect, be it for project managers or community managers. So again, your grasp of these concepts is going to make a significant difference in your effectiveness as a manager in Connect. We highly recommend digging through these concepts and practicing utilizing them before getting into the full swing of your implementation. So again, we have more videos coming up covering some of these items and referencing some of these items, so stay tuned.